Hi guys, Jasmine here with Simply Jazzy by Design. Today, I have an awesome Tumbler tutorial for you featuring the peekaboo method. So if this is something that you've been wondering about, or if it's just something that you want to perfect your current method, stay tuned so I can add a little jazz to your life. Let's jump right into our supplies. For today's project, you're going to need alcohol inks, foam brushes, a tumbler, white spray paint, epoxy, and gloves. I've already spray painted my cup white to give me a nice base to start with. Next, I'm going to take some time to prep my alcohol inks by putting them into separate containers. Hold for a moment, I'll be right back with you. Alright guys, we are back. So as you can see, I now have my alcohol inks separated out. I have my yellow, orange, red, green, and blue. So what I'm going to start by doing is I'm have my foam brush. I'm going to go ahead and dip it into my yellow. And I'm just going to start by placing some random splotches or dabs onto my cup. No rhyme or reason to it. This is kind of like a masterpiece splatter, paint splatter tumbler. So it doesn't really need to be neat. There doesn't need to be any patterns or anything. How you guys achieve this is completely up to you. You just want to go ahead and take that brush and just start adding it. Now we've moved on to our orange. We're going to do the same thing and complete that as well with our red, green, and blue. Like I said before, there doesn't need to be any rhyme or reason to it. We just want to get the colors on there. Of course, when you're starting out, the cup is kind of still white. So, putting a little paint here and a little paint there doesn't look like much. But I promise you, once all the colors are on, you can see how much more space you have and what you need to fill in. So just continue to add that. As you can see here, my brush kind of got into my blue somehow. So I started to make purple. That wasn't what I wanted to achieve because this was a cup for a man. So I just took some time to clean off my brush again, went back into the red, and started back adding my red splotches. Once that is completed, like I said, you want to go ahead and use all the colors you plan on using. And then just go ahead and spread them out. As you move the cup along, you'll see that you have some open spaces. You may want to dab it on. You may want to stroke it on. You may want brush strokes. Or sometimes I like to place the brush and then twist it. Kind of give it like a spin look. Like I said, the look that I'm trying to achieve was more so like a paint splatter. So it didn't bother me that some of my inks were running. Keep in mind when you're using alcohol inks that they can make a mess and they can stain. So you do want to take your precautions. You do want to use gloves if at all possible and cover your work surface. My alcohol inks are homemade using permanent markers. If you guys are interested, I'll be more than happy to do a tutorial on that later. So just keep filling in your spaces, doing it how you see so fit. Now I've decided to go ahead and add some dripping paint along the side. So I'm taking my cup turner, I'm just turning it sideways, and I'm just going to go ahead and dab into one of my colors. Now with this, you do want it to be pretty saturated. So you see me dipping back into my blue, kind of trying to get as much ink as I can on there. Then you want to just place your brush and just push it, give it a little bit of pressure, and that's usually going to go ahead and get that ink right on out of it. So I'm just completing this method. I want a little bit more on the other side as well. And then you'll see me go ahead and continue along with this method with the other colors. This is just something that I decided that I wanted to do because I knew what I wanted to achieve as my end look. Unfortunately, with the angle, you can't really see what's going on, but I promise you I'm getting those paints to drip very nicely. So just take some time to play around with it. With alcohol inks, it's kind of just a preference. Sometimes it'll go and lay where you want them to. Sometimes it'll run. If that's not the look you're achieving, it's okay. You can always take regular clear alcohol and go ahead and get those paints moving again. So any mistake that you make with your alcohol ink sometimes can be corrected. Just add a little bit more alcohol, and then that'll make it to where you can go ahead and play with it and move it around a little bit more. If you are using multiple colors and you don't want your colors to mix, please take the time to let one color dry before adding another. Alcohol inks do kind of dry a little bit faster because they are made with alcohol, But keep in mind that at the end of the day, it is still ink. So I'm just continuing on here. Now I've made it up to my orange. Once again, I just want a few of those drops. And I'm just going to add one to each side just to kind of make it to where those colors are going completely around my rim and dripping down my cup. Typically, I start with a lighter color first when I am starting my projects. But when I'm at this point, I want to go backwards because the lighter colors will be overpowered if I started my drips going backwards. Going forward. So that's why I started my darker color first to see, hopefully, that once I got to my yellow, I still had more space and I made sure that my drips from my darker colors weren't crossing and mixing those up. So like I said, you just want to go ahead and continue out this process and I will show you guys what I come up with afterwards. All right, guys, we are back. As you see, once we finished it, we did go ahead and add a layer of epoxy. Here you see the one before epoxying it. It's still drying. So you want to go and let it completely dry till it's got dry to the touch. We want to make sure it doesn't smear. And then, of course, you'll go ahead and add a layer of epoxy. And just remember, when adding your epoxy, you want to make sure that it is completely smooth. We're getting ready to put a decal over this. So, of course, it needs to be smooth. So this one here is smooth at the top and the bottom. And we're ready to move forward with our decal. All right, here we have a sheet of already cut out decals that we're going to be using for our peekaboo method. These are some paint splatters. The job called for it. So this is what we're using. So what I'm going to do is, it's an easy design. So I'm just going to take my time and go ahead and begin weeding it. So you want to just go ahead and find your corner. And I did go ahead and cut out a full sheet of it because this is a design I do often. So it's just easier to already have them on hand. So go ahead and find that corner and just start peeling. You do want to go a little bit slow. Make sure that you're getting all the pieces and that you're not ripping anything. So just go ahead and pull it. I've noticed that pulling at an angle does make it a little bit easier. So go ahead and separate all of that. Take your time. There's no rush. You want to make sure you get it all off. And I'm just pulling. All right, so now we have that completely detached. Everything looks good. I don't see any pieces that got left behind, which can sometimes happen. Everything looks great. So now we're going to go ahead and take our contact paper. That's what I use for my transfer tape. It's just contact paper that you can find at the dollar store. I'm not exactly positive where I got this package. It was a pretty thick amount. I've had it for a while now. I want to say Walmart, but don't quote me. Like I said, you can find this at Walmart, Michael's, Dollar Tree. A lot of places have it. It's just clear contact paper. So I've already cut out a piece that is the size of my area that I had. So that's the 12 by 12. This is a 12-inch roll. So I just cut out enough to go ahead and cover that. I'm going to go ahead and start pulling it up on one side. Just want enough to that where I can start laying it down over the top row. So pull that backing paper off and go ahead and lay it down even with that first row. Doesn't have to be completely even and flush to the paper. You just want it to make sure that you're covering that row. And you want to go ahead and smooth it down and start pulling the rest of that backing paper up. And just slowly remove it. As you go along, you do want to smooth it down just to make sure that it is smooth and doesn't have any air bubbles. I missed a little bit at the top piece, but it's okay. If you don't cover it all, you can just go ahead and if you have any excess, just go ahead and cut that off and add it to that piece. It doesn't have to be perfect contact paper. It just needs to touch it all. So I'm just going to cut this little extra piece over here off this end. And I'm just going to add it to the top right there where I missed it. And let's go ahead and finish smoothing this out. We're smoothing it. We're making sure it's attached. We're using our scraper to get it real nice and tight. It is important to get everything onto that contact paper. We want to make sure that it's scraped really good, because when we go to remove it, we want to make sure it comes off that carrier sheet and stays on the contact paper. I do use a Cricut scraper. I don't use Cricut. I have a Silhouette, but I do use the Cricut scraper because I do like the handle for it, or the hold on it. So just scrape it, scrape it, scrape it. It's very important, this part. Don't cut this part out. It's very important you get that attached really well. So now that I have it all scraped down and it's all attached to it, I am going to go ahead and cut out some strips. These strips, the way I designed them on my Silhouette, there are multiple sizes in each row. I did decide that for my project, 2 or at least 1.5 strips was good for it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out 2 of those, and we're going to go ahead and use them for our project. So now that I've cut those 2 strips out, I'm going to go ahead and once again give it one good scrape. Like I said, it's very important that you make sure that it's attached to your contact paper very well. So one last good scrape. Now we want to go ahead and remove any excess paper and contact paper that we have. No need in having too much contact paper when you're applying it to that epoxy. We don't want to take a chance on it getting stuck and not coming off. So now we're going to go ahead and cut these into little pieces. Because we're doing a splatter design, we're going to attach them in individual pieces. Now, if this was something to where you needed a row, then you would keep it together. But since this is a scattered design, we want to go ahead and separate them so that we can apply them individually. And here I am separating that second one as well. And just go ahead and keep cutting those apart. All right, we have them all separated, and we're going to go ahead and begin. When I'm doing certain cups, if it doesn't matter the rhyme or reason and they don't need to be straight, I don't focus on having anything to cradle my cup into. So I just have my cup laying on the table. Now we're going to go ahead and take one of our pieces, and we're going to remove the backing paper, and we're going to just lay it on our cup. Lay it kind of like a sticker. These are simple designs, so nothing extra really needs to be done. We just want to make sure that it's completely smooth out and that we don't have any air bubbles or anything like that. After you smooth it down, go ahead and remove your contact paper. I don't have any nails right now, so you see me struggling a little bit to get that contact paper up, but it came up, so we're good. Put that aside. Go ahead and do our next one. We're just going to go ahead and repeat that process. And that one's up. Let's go ahead and finish scattering our cup with our pieces, and I will be right back with you guys in a moment. All right, guys, we are back. As you can see, after we finish adding our decals, I went ahead and spray painted the entire cup white. Now, this did take a few coats because the colors that we used were so vibrant. I want to say that I did go with a total of 4 coats, letting it dry very well in between. When you don't let them dry very well, you'll notice that it's still a little bit tacky. But this one was nice and smooth, and it was great to go. So now that we have it completely painted white, what we're going to do is we want to go ahead and start removing those decals that we put. Now, I typically use my weeding tool, but unfortunately, at the start of this video, it disappeared. So I'm just going to use an old pair of embroidery scissors because they had a nice tip. So I'm just going to use those scissors to go ahead and pull up a piece of the tip of the edge, and then use my finger to continue to pull it off. I want to make sure that I'm not scratching the cup as I go along. Since the design that we're doing is going to be majority white, we want to focus on making sure we're not scratching up that paint. So this is a little bit of a time-consuming part just because of the design that I used. So we're just going to take our time, pull that off, and then you'll start to see that color peeking through. Make sure that you put your pieces somewhere that you're not going to accidentally roll your cup back into, because you don't want it to get stuck back on to your cup. So just take your time. Whatever tool you use to weed, use it to pull it up. I have used stick pins. I've used safety pins. Really, you just need something that's pointy and sharp that you can go ahead and get that corner lifted up. You don't want to dig too far into your cup, but you do want to be able to pull that piece completely up. And as you see, you can, like I said, start seeing the color pop through. And you want to just continue to pull those pieces up. And that color peeking through is amazing. It came out just the way I expected it to do. Like I said, when you're putting on your decals, this is why it's very important to pick a pretty spot that you're okay with, because these are the pieces that are going to come through. All right, so I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. So I'm going to go ahead and finish pulling these pieces off, take my time. And I will be right back with you guys to see what's next. All right, so we have completely finished removing all of those decals. Then we went ahead and added our layer of epoxy. Next thing will be to go ahead and add whatever decal name that you want on it, and this one's done. So here we have the completed project. You see we went and added a name and a scripture. It was for a church. So yeah, that is completely done. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more.